So we've been discussing this idea of dreaming, and we've identified that there's a fearful dream and there is a happy dream. Question becomes, are there alternatives, something in between that's not as painful as a fearful dream, but not as all-encompassing as the happy dream? A kind of middle ground between illusions and the truth? In this session, we'll consider the alternatives to the fearful dream. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader for this session is Kathy S.
What is a sense of sickness but a sense of limitation, of a splitting off and separating from, a gap that is perceived between you and your brother and what is seen as health? And so the good is seen to be outside, the evil in, and thus is sickness separating off the self from good and keeping evil in. God is the alternate to dreams of fear. Who shares in them can never share in him, but who withdraws his mind from sharing them is sharing him. There is no other choice. Except you share it, nothing can exist. And you exist because God shared his will with you, that his creation might create.
Mm-hmm. As always, we need to orient ourselves to these opening ideas because we're all coming in this cold, and now all of a sudden there are these lofty sense ideas referring to sickness. And again, if you will, think of sickness as something that is done by a confused mind, not a bodily state, but a mind that believes that it's separate, believes that it's limited, believes that there's a gap between you and others that is some kind of gap that keeps us apart and different from each other. And so as a result of that worldview, this creates a view of life itself, of being separate, existing in separate bodies at distances from other people. And those distances would seem, in the dream of fear, to separate us all. And thus is sickness separating off the self from the good, while keeping in your mind an idea of separation, which they're going to use the word evil to refer to that. It's a confusion or a delusion that upsets one's balance and prevents us from being at peace. The alternative, God is the alternative to all this, and there is no other choice. This is the central theme of the reading today. There's two choices. The choice between a dream of fear versus the dream that the Holy Spirit offers that is in union with God, who shares a common will, a common purpose with God. And then we get this statement that is true throughout all eternity, but might be difficult at first to follow. Except you share it, nothing can exist. And you exist because God shared his will with you and that his creation might create. Except you share it, nothing can exist. So I'll offer some reinterpretations of that same message without changing the meaning. all creation was brought into existence in unity and in harmony to be shared equally with everyone. It is the very essence of creation that everybody's in it together. And anything that is not shared is not a part of that plan. Except you share it, nothing can exist. Now, illusions exist outside of the plan of creation. And so so to speak, they exist. Illusions occupy a zone of unreality outside creation, and they cannot be shared in the sense that all of us can join together in one mind and share it together. So that therefore they violate the law of creation and do not exist. This is abstract, and words can be inadequate at times to fully capture the essence of this. So you have to use your spiritual intuition, but know that the very nature of creation is that you should be a vital part of it along with everyone else. We all share in creation together. And later on, so we might ask, well, why is that important? Why bother even discussing it? Well, later on, we'll learn that you have a part to play in creation, which is extending the attributes of creation in your life. And that is a sharing of creation with others. You have a part to play. And so that's consistent with the laws of creation. Creation is a process of sharing. And one final thought is the Father shared his infinite nature with creation. It all began with a sharing by the Creator of his own nature. And so we are passing that along when we share. And how do we share? We share by being helpful. We share by healing. We share by being messengers. We share by blessing others, and the list goes on and on and on. Every time you forgive another, you invite them to become part of the greater plan, which is a sharing. Sandra?
Yeah, and sharing comes so naturally, but what is it that I'm going to share? God has given me the gift of being able to create like my Father in heaven, and also uh, the choice as to whether I do create or not, because um, all illusions are created from fear. And so all illusions are created because I don't believe that the power of God is within me. It's not of me. But it was given to me as a gift, and not just to me. It was given to all of us as a gift. But I have to choose to embrace that and to know that it's mine and yours. And 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 so when folks, including myself, miscreate, it's usually out of fear. And actually, this whole world is a miscreation. That's why it's called an illusion, because it was created out of fear. The fear that motivated the creation of this world was the fear that we were separate from our creator, which isn't even true. So it's just, I think it's, now I'm starting to laugh at it because it's just, it's a made up story. I'm complete.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandra. When you can laugh at it, that's a sure sign that you're no longer so troubled by the illusion, and you're starting to not be afraid of the empty message. In the beginning of the workbook lessons, it teaches very succinctly to learn to not be afraid of meaninglessness, of these hollow accusations of the ego. You must learn, it's a learning not to respond to them with fear. More to be said on that when we get to the Freedom of Fear series. Okay, thank you. We'll go on. So, creation is shared. There is no there is an alternative to the dreams of fear. God is the only alternative. And that message will repeat.
It is the sharing of the evil dreams of hate and malice, bitterness and death, of sin and suffering, and pain and loss that makes them real. Unshared, they are perceived as meaningless. The fear is gone from them because you did not give them your support. Where fear has gone, their love must come, because there are but these alternatives. Where one appears, the other disappears, and which you share becomes the only one you have. You have the one that you accept, because it is the only one you wish to have.
Mhm. This may be for many the most important paragraph here to understanding it. I don't know that one could clearly understand the rest without grasping this, so we want to underscore things. So we're going to take the idea of sharing now and make a distinction between, a moment ago, we were talking about sharing the attributes of creation, blessings, forgiveness, love, and peace. We're going to make a distinction now of sharing dreams of fear. This would be, there's a lot of examples of that. This is where your mind engages in the belief and the repeating gossip. Let's say, I don't know if it's probably a stronger word than gossip. Sharing a message of fear, you know what it looks like. It's a mistake by the mind that in that person's mind believes it's true. We're all going to die type of hysteria is sharing, it's communicating to others your belief in a fearful dream. And in the very process of sharing it, it's amplified in your awareness. And it's an attempt to convince other people to believe it's real as well. This is Sandra used the term miscreation. This is what a miscreation is. I start promoting dreams of fear to others and convince them that the fears are real. This is using the power to create misapplied to dreams of fear and pain and loss and suffering. So we need to learn mindfulness. We need to learn not to do that, even though it's often done in society. I'm convinced that if we were to watch a 1 hour news program together, I could point out to you where that it's totally filled with sharing dreams of fear. things that haven't even happened yet. They're warning you that these things might happen and that it would be dreadful if it did. So it's common behavior. And this is where, of course, is the reversal of the thinking of the world. And we need to learn to, I call it swim in your lane and not swim outside. Your lane is the happy dream. You learn to swim in the happy dream. And it doesn't mean you're perfect and you never get your wires crossed into a fearful dream. But when you do, you pay attention to how that feels. And you recognize that this is not inner peace. And you willingly make the effort to let it go and come back. So what happens when you let go? And this is the key point here of this paragraph. When you do recognize it was a dream of fear and you let it go, unshared, the dreams of fear are meaningless. They're not spoken about. They're not entertained externally or in your own mind. The fear is gone from them because you did not give them the power of your mind, your support. And here's the beauty. You have to trust this by faith. Where fear has gone, the vacuum will be filled with the alternative, which is love. You have to learn to accept or trust that by faith, that when fear is completely gone, that state which would seem to be emptiness is a very transitory moment, and love comes rushing in because there are no obstacles to the receiving of love. So where fear is gone, love must come because there are but these two alternatives. Where love appears, the other disappears. And so it's a formula, and I think a fairly easy to understand formula is be aware and recognize the tendency to share evil dreams and stop it. And not only stop it, but completely, this is the higher level, completely free your mind of any belief in fearful dreams. And that's what forgiveness is, to let it all go. And love you are guaranteed by the Creator that love will come in and replace it. Kathy?
This is so amazing. It's so beautiful. I love the logic, and I forget what kind of logic the course is called, but it is so logical that I was able to, get on my knees and really, as the years passed, trust the course enough that I could accept some of these ideas and then fully. And this is beautiful. I love the part about sharing. And the reason I love that is because when I came to the course, I didn't know God loved me. I felt the opposite. And a lot of people have trouble. Like, remember Julie, she had trouble feeling loved. And when we got to that premise, God loves everyone equally, I accepted that. And then I was able to give to others, and then it just snowballed. And then I was able to receive love. So I love this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Kathy is explaining that her experience has unfolded over many years. I mean, there are changes from month to month and season to season, but if you really want to see profound changes, give us 3 years. Profound changes. Susie?
Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. I have a question, Jonica. If someone says that they just naturally are not kind or empathetic or compassionate, and it's not their nature to be that way, would the Course say that they are siding with their ego?
Um, I understand what you're saying. First of all, if they say that, that's what they've learned in this world. And that's a common message. Of course, is the ego is belittling towards us. The Course is your biggest I'm sorry, the ego is your biggest critic. So people will say things about themselves that result in feeling like they are less than or no good or unlovable, whatever words. Um, and one is sharing that belief. It seems real to them. So this is really believing the illusion is true. This is the fundamental error here, Susie, is the inability to distinguish between the truth and the illusion, and believing the illusion is true and that the truth is far away or outside of my nature. And so, yes, you could say they're siding with the ego in the sense that they are endorsing the illusion as real for them. And I think this is true of ego in general. I don't know that that's an exception. Maybe it's stronger expressed by some, but I think everyone believes their ego is the only game in town until they learn differently.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And the only reason why I ask is when we were talking about sharing and sharing kindness and love and peace. And when somebody says they're unable to share that, to me, what I've learned from the Course, like Kathy said, through so many years, is just the opposite, that everything I thought is just not true. And that the only way to find peace is to be kind and to join and to be integrated and to share. Anyway, yes, they are attributes of the ego, but thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. I mean, the world is a promotional platform for the sharing of disappointed dreams. Now, occasionally sprinkled with love on top. So we want to acknowledge that, but the particularly in the modern world where we get so many messages by media outlets electronically, they we know newspapers tend towards sensationalism to get your attention, and they feed on the things that you would get most riled up by. So those be there's plenty of that evidence happening, and miracle students need to ultimately distinguish between that and the happy dream and learn to break the habit of feeding off fearful dreaming. Noel?
To respond to that, I might say to that person, I don't see you that way. They're identifying themselves because essentially they feel unworthy, and that's why they're attributing all those negatives to themselves. Whether or not they would accept my compliment, I don't know, but I could still, even voicing it or not voicing it, I could see them that way.
Yes.
And that might help them.
Yes.
A second thing is on the reading today, what you underlined it's very meaningful to me. Unshared, they are perceived as meaningless. So to me, that means if I don't voice them, if I don't give them recognition, the evil dreams, they just don't exist.
Yes.
And it seems very simple to turn away from all those fear thoughts.
Yes.
But I think that's the solution.
It is. Very good. Thank you, Noah. The expression I learned somewhere else is don't advertise evil dreams. You might hear them, and you might even at some level in your own mind think, that's possible. That might really, that may happen or might describe something that happened. But are you going to be the messenger for that fearful dream? That's the question. And many of us have unconsciously become messengers or parrots of a message that is one that would not make us happy.
You share no evil dreams if you forgive the dreamer and perceive that he is not the dream he made. And so he cannot be a part of yours, from which you both are free. Forgiveness separates the dreamer from the evil dream and thus releases him. Remember, if you share an evil dream, you will believe you are the dream you share. And fearing it, you will not want to know your own identity because you think that it is fearful. And you will deny yourself and walk upon an alien ground which your creator did not make and where you seem to be a something you are not. You will make war upon yourself, which seems to be your enemy, and will attack your brother as part of what you hate. There is no compromise. You are yourself or an illusion. What can be between illusion and the truth? A middle ground, where you can be a thing that is not you, must be a dream and cannot be the truth.
The middle ground cannot be the truth. So what I'm going to dwell on that last point for a moment. There is in the ego's sly, distorted view of life, the notion of a middle ground. And the way I would illustrate it would be on one side, we'll call it, I guess this is it's my left. I assume maybe that's the way you view it too. On my left is the ego, and on the other side is your true self on the far right. The ego says, well, let's have a compromise and meet in the middle. Let's split the difference here. The message sometimes comes out, you can't live in this world without an ego, which is really the message, you can't live in this world without fear. And so I am alerting, the Course is alerting us to this idea of compromising with the ego, of trying to get all the benefits from realizing that you are as God created you, and at the same time keeping part of the ego, your pet idols, your old self concepts, the concepts that the world teaches, to keep those with you in this journey of miracles and that would be a middle ground where you attempt to formulate a different version of an illusion of yourself. This is just a modified ego, which is still an illusion. And so, of course, warns us that that is not true. And so there's some more I want to say about the first half of the paragraph before I go on. Susie had a comment?
Yeah, I think, Jonica, that is exactly why I believe a lot of people drop out of A Course in Miracles. And I think that A Course in Miracles is the only program that I have ever been a part of. And I've been a part of 12-step programs and all kinds of meditation, whatever, that it's black and white. There is no middle ground. And I think that's why it's so difficult, because it's really complete denial of the ego. You know, I'm saying complete, but I think that's what the Course really teaches us. If we want to heal. And there it is. I don't know, it's not black and white, it's white and whatever color that is, but there it is. And to me, that paragraph, you know, it's just, we talk a lot about people dropping out, and well, because there's just no middle ground. Anyway, that really struck home to me. And you know, there are so many people that say, I just can't get it, I just can't get it, I get it intellectually, but I just can't get it. And yeah, there's no middle ground.
Yes, there isn't. But there's the illusion of a middle ground. So let's focus for a moment on the first half here, which is forgiveness. And our part in there is, Noelle expressed it when she said, I don't view you that way, referring to a person that's condemning themselves. Forgive the dreamer and perceive that he is not the dream he made. That distinction is what sets a person who's believing in the happy dream apart from a believer, a promoter of the fearful dream, is to see that the dreamer, the person, is not that dream. And thus this releases them. It means you don't share their judgment of themselves as being unlovable or unworthy. You perceive them as a worthy soul. This releases them. You're communicating. This is your message. I don't bind you to a sense of unworthiness. I invite you to rise into your own truthfulness. Yeah. Sandra?
Would you include in that middle ground the development of a spiritual ego?
That would be a very good term for it. Thank you, Sandra. It didn't occur to me, but yes. Let me just say a few things about spiritual ego for people that may not be familiar with the term. You can find in many spiritual communities examples of a spiritual ego, and it is in fact someone that has decided that they need help, and that is joined a community and then takes on all of the behaviors that are consistent with that community, where you dress like, you talk like, you attend the events, that becomes your community that you associate with. But the internal thought process that was of the fearful dream of the ego has not changed. And so now you have a fearful ego within, dressed in sheep's clothing. And there's all, not to go any further with it, but yes, that would be a middle ground. On the exterior, it looks good, but the interior work has not. And that's why Susie mentioned seems difficult with the Course in Miracles, because it's so focused on your interior work, of you doing your interior work and not stopping at some middle point, but continuing along in the journey of releasing and letting go of your fears, and purifying your old thoughts so that they're your thoughts are compatible with the thoughts of God. Let me say one more thing here. Let's say you do get lost in your thinking and start believing in another person's evil dream, and you share their judgment against themselves. What happens to you? Well, this throws you off balance. This throws you into you're now sharing the fearful dream with them, and that causes you to lose a sense of who you truly are. We are as God created us, but in a fearful dream, you forget all that. You lose a sense of your identity, and you deny your most holy mind and walk upon an alien ground, a realm of illusions where you seem to be an ego that you are not, and you will make war upon your holy, most holy self. So the truth is, I am a part of God. My mind is very holy. But if you enter into a fearful dream, you'll be in opposition to that truth. And this is what the Course calls the basic conflict. So this is psychological. This is the basic conflict of human beings, is this internal split within you between your most holy mind and part of you that believes another story that is not part of your most holy mind. It's the basic conflict. Out of one comes creating in love, out of the other comes miscreating in fear. Solve that problem, and all problems are solved. But you can't do it by yourself. Susie?
Yeah, two things. I wanted to say something, but Jonica, what you just said is just so unbelievably right on. And that, we always talk, especially you talk about listen to how you feel. And that prayer to the Holy Spirit is, I might not know what to do. I might not have chosen the right way, but I do know that I do not feel right.
Yes.
I do know that I can choose again. Please help me choose again. If I'm all wrapped up in a fear, someone else's, or become attached to a fearful dream, whatever. But what I wanted to say, I love what Noelle said, and I love what you said, but I also wanted to make a distinction of, I'm able to pray for that person and see that person as perfect, whole, and complete, and whole, know that that person is in it's, her own dream. But as you just said, I have to try my best to stay out of that dream and just pray for that person. I don't have to become a part, like Kathy said weeks ago about her boss. She saw him as a loving, perfect, complete person, but just didn't want to I think that's what she was trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you just said.
Yes.
We don't have to, and I think that's what we oftentimes do And then we are so confused.
Yes.
And I really love that you helped us with that clarification. I think that possibly helped a lot of us understand where we are when we're so confused.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm getting myself right, but that was extremely helpful, Jonica. Extremely.
Good, good. Yeah,
And
there,
can I just add one thing that, because I've been dealing with my own spiritual ego, is that the spiritual ego likes to use the truth as a weapon.
yes,
I'm complete.
yes. And that can be very confusing for new people who are newer to come in and hear words that sound true but are now being used to hurt, to judge. So yeah, it's not, it's, we this is why we need to learn to make these distinctions so that we realize, okay, that's a fearful dream there. There's a line from our prior session that I want to recall you. This is when someone comes to you with their fearful dream. Think rather of him as a mind in which illusions still persist, but as a mind which is brother to you still. This is my brother in spirit who is temporarily occupied with an illusion, but that's a temporary confusion, not, that doesn't change their eternal being. It's just a passing state. All right. This issue of making war upon yourself is the crucial issue. It's framed as the basic conflict between miscreating, using your powers to miscreate instead of using your powers to create. Emotionally, it shows up as love versus fear. And when you get that point, all the other pieces seem to fall in place. Heather, you had a comment?
Yeah, I heard somebody the other day, he's a Course in Miracles reader, and when he has something going on with one of his friends, he says to them, he says, that feels off. He says, "My brother, this need not be." So I love that he just brings it right to he sees that there's an illusion going on,
Yeah.
but he uses the Course and he does it in a way that's so loving that it just really is a way to separate out the real from the unreal. I just think that was just such a beautiful way to say it.
That really is, because it's not judging against the person. It's identifying that the illusion is not necessary.
Correct.
I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you.
You have conceived a little gap between illusions and the truth to be the place where all your safety lies and where yourself is safely hidden by what you have made. Here is a world established that is sick, and this the world the body's eyes perceive. Here are the sounds it hears, the voices that its ears were made to hear. Yet sights and sounds the body can perceive are meaningless. It cannot see nor hear. It does not know what seeing is, what listening is for. It is as little able to perceive as it can judge or understand or know. Its eyes are blind, its ears are deaf. It cannot think, and so it cannot have effects.
They were referring to the physical body and its sensory mechanism. The body doesn't really have an opinion about all this. It just reports what the senses have to your mind. And then your mind decides what all that means. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Should I be afraid? Should I not be afraid, etc. Um, so I got a lot out of the reading that we're doing today, particularly because there is coming up in the next few paragraphs an insight about the little gap between illusions and the truth. And I'm sure the gap is referred to at least 100 times in the Course of Miracles, if not many more. I mean, it's referred to the gap, the gap, the gap. And what does that mean? What gap are we talking about? You know, help me understand specifically what we're referring to. The gap between illusions and the truth. Well, the middle ground is one way that you could express that. The idea that between an illusion and the truth, there's a middle ground. There's a space in there that you might want to occupy that space. And we've already said that that is just a modified version of an illusion. And we talked about the spiritual ego might want to occupy that ground there. And it seems to the ego to be a place where your safety lies. Oh, I can tuck myself into this middle ground and keep my ego, keep my idols and illusions and fears and judgments, and play spiritual and be safe. But this leaves the underlying confusion within, it perpetuates it. And so this is a world that is sick. And the body will then believe, okay, so let me back up a thing. So that seeming middle ground is not the truth. It is not healing, and it is a state of additional confusion that assumes because I'm now in a different place than I was before, I'm okay now. I'm maybe you could call it in traditional language, I've been saved. I crossed the threshold, and you might see in newspapers from time to time reportings of events of people that are in leadership positions where it comes out that they are stealing all the money from the organization, or you know, that they were occupying the middle ground. It tends to be really good gossip when you find when that happens. All right, so let's go on and look at this gap a little bit more.
What is there God created to be sick, and what that he created not can be? Let not your eyes behold a dream, your ears bear witness to illusion. They were made to look upon a world that is not there, to hear the voices that can make no sound. Yet are there other sounds and other sights that can be seen and heard and understood. For eyes and ears are senses without sense, and what they see and hear they but report. It is not that they hear and see, but you who put together every jagged piece, each senseless scrap and shred of evidence, and make a witness to the world you want. Let not the body's ears and eyes perceive these countless fragments seen within the gap that you imagined, and let them persuade their maker his imaginings are real.
Mm-hmm. So the emphasis here, again and again, is on let not your own body see and hear these witnesses to fearful dreams. Don't watch that stuff. Don't listen to that stuff. You wouldn't let your 4-year-old niece or nephew listen to a nightmarish scenario. Let not the eyes behold a dream. Your ears will bear witness to, nor your ears bear witness to an illusion. They were, so what am I getting to here is the gap, which is the illusion of a middle ground, is symbolized by the body. Let me say it in another way. In the ego's religion, it will hijack your idea of a body and of bodies, particularly your body, and use that to serve its purposes of reinforcing the gap between illusions and the truth. It's just another way in which the ego produces illusions. This particular one takes the form of the way you think about bodies. And it's just an illusion if you let it go, release it, and forgive it. We learned a moment ago that the truth will come in and take its place, and the body will take on now the purpose that the Holy Spirit has given it, which is to be helpful and to heal. And then the body becomes holy because it's used for a holy purpose. So there's nothing in the body inherently is neutral, and then your mind decides which purpose to give to it, to serve an evil dream or to serve a holy dream. And the body then becomes, in the fearful dream, the body becomes a symbol that separates us. And just in plain language, for instance, right now Simon's up in Orlando, and I'm down in Palm Beach County. That's about 170 miles away, and would take a couple hours to get there by car. So we would say there's space between our bodies. And we're not denying that there's some space between bodies. But what we are saying is that space is not meaningful to our minds. Those are not barriers to minds being joined as one. And an example of that is when we get together in these meetings here and join together our minds as one. So the space, the gap, is not meaningful, but the ego would have you believe it is meaningful. And so we need to learn to make this distinction between beliefs that are meaningless, and so that we don't fall into that trap.
Creation proves reality because it shares the function all creation shares. It is not made of little bits of glass, a piece of wood, a thread or two, perhaps all put together to attest its truth. Reality does not depend on this. There is no gap that separates the truth from dreams and from illusions. Truth has left no room for them in any place or time, for it fills every place and every time and makes them wholly indivisible.
So you might have noticed on that opening line, creation proves reality, that there's a shift in levels here. We're now talking about the eternal laws of creation, the eternal plan of the Creator. We're outside of the realm of human interpretation of dreams being good or bad, illusions or the truth. We're now at the highest level of true creation, and creation proves the nature of reality, because reality shares the function of all creation. Reality and creation have the same purpose. They are harmonious. They are at one. They are not at all conflicted with each other. It's a set of laws with a purpose and a plan that is all united together, not made of tiny little ideas stitched together into a view of the world, which is what perception is, stitching together fragmented ideas to create a view of the world. Perception would cause you to believe between these fragmented ideas that there are gaps. But in truth, there is no gap that stands between truth and illusions. Truth is uniform and cohesive and whole. It's wholly indivisible. It has properties which are beyond the realm of perception, which is to say, the truth has a property of perfect union, while perception has the property of piecing together ideas in an attempt to portray a worldview, a whole. They're on different levels, and everyone confuses these levels because, and the evidence of that is, everyone believes that their own perceptions of the world are true. Their mind believes that stuff. And even though it would not be difficult at all to prove to you that all of your beliefs about the world were cobbled together over a lifetime of impressions and things people said about the life and the world and you, your family, your culture, the civilization that you exist in, and your personal experiences, all assembled a unique view of the world. You cobbled all that together. No two people believe in the exact same version. And yet we all believe that that's real. Reality does not depend on that mechanism, because reality is an attribute of creation. It is wholly indivisible. It's eternally stable and consistent. It never changes because it was always perfect and remains perfect. There's no need to edit or alter reality. So we're contrasting that with this notion of perception that is fragmented and has all these gaps.
You who believe there is a little gap between you and your brother, do not see that it is here you are as prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. The world you see does not exist because the place where you perceive it is not real. The gap is carefully concealed in fog, and misty pictures rise to cover it with vague, uncertain forms and changing shapes, forever insubstantial and unsure. Yet in the gap is nothing, and there are no awesome secrets and no darkened tombs where terror rises from the bones of death. Look at the little gap, and you behold the innocence and emptiness of sin that you will see within yourself when you have lost the fear of recognizing love.
Once you have lost the fear of recognizing love, then you go back and look at that little gap and you see it for what it is. It's empty of all the fears that you may have thought were true before. Instead, you behold your innocence once you have lost the fear of recognizing love. So that's a shift which we will assume that none of us have fully made as yet. Assume that as long as you have an ego functioning there, that there is still an ego that is afraid of love. And until that is gone, then there is still that fear, mostly subconscious, but occasionally it'll be brought to consciousness when triggered or in certain moments. So this last thought here, I want to stay with this a minute because this is really the concluding idea of what we're reading here tonight, is that we have in our confusion believed that there are these gaps in reality. There are gaps in our relationships. There are separation between you and everybody else. It's actually a gap within your own self-concept that is then projected outward. You do not, and here was the insight that I had that I didn't recognize before. It's here that you are as prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. It's in this feeling that there are all these splits, all these cobbled together pieces of information that create a view of the world. That's a frightening feeling that that's what reality is, cobbled together based on your memories of life so far. That the creator could do no better than that. That all creation is no better than your cobbled together views of the world. It refers to it as a prison where you believe it's real and it's concealed. All this is concealed in a fog of misunderstanding and of illusions, of misty pictures, vague and uncertain forms. And so what am I saying is, I'll speak first person, my entire worldview is based on nothing. It's based on an unsound set of premises, a faulty foundation, and I define myself within that worldview. I define my relationship to others within that worldview, and I define my relationship to God within that worldview. And all of it takes the form of this middle ground between illusions and truth. Is a very poorly founded view of life. In truth, creation and reality are as one. but in one's mind, a different story has come to fill that space about reality, and that is the ancient prison to which the Course so often refers. And that ancient prison, the ego will represent it as a world of bodies. And so this was not clear to me in the past as it is now. It's a part of the ever unfolding peeling of the onion. And I'm happy to be able to share that with you. It feels freeing to let illusions go. Susie, you had your hand up?
You know, this is where what comes up for me is I used to say before the course, well, this is just the way I am. This is just the way I am. And I've come to understand that I ended up a certain way due to causes and conditions. And I always use the word domestications, but I don't have to stay this way. And that's what the course has taught me, that who I thought I was and who I totally wanted you to know this is just who I am is not true. And I don't have to stay that way. And I have the workbook lessons and the support and the course, and it's a wonderful, hopeful knowing now for me of certainty that I don't have to stay that way. But the power of decision is my own. And I have to be willing to not want to stay that way anymore. And I'll just to end with this, and I'll let Kathy go. What I meant to really say before was most programs let us somehow get away being in that middle ground.
Yeah.
Can somehow still talk about who I am. Well, I'm this way because my mother did this, and I'm this way because my father did this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not putting anything down, and I think everything is amazing. But this ACIM does not let my ego get away with telling me I'm something that I'm not. And the responsibility is 100% on myself. And I'd never understood that until Course in Miracles. And I am forever grateful. Thank you, John. Go.
Thank you, Susie. Kathy?
Yeah, I think I used to think the little gap, and I love this whole definition of the little gap, was that witnessing, when you first start at the beginning to witness the illusion out there, and all of a sudden you're like, there's a gap between you and what's going on, and you realized I don't have to participate in the darkness anymore. So I thought that was the gap, but now I see from this that the oneness connects all of us all the time, regardless of what behaviors I'm seeing outside myself. I'm still connected in that oneness, that connectivity. And so this kind of, yeah, like you said, it sort of is like bringing this together for me. It was more of an awakening, is really that witnessing was more of an awakening in me than anything, not a gap, really. But that's what I thought it was.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm totally tracking with you there. It is an ever unfolding, a couple people, Kathy and Susie, both testified. You know, even after 1 year of studying the Course in Miracles, I liked the message. I could tell it was true, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know who I was. I knew I needed forgiveness. And I needed a lot of mind training and everything. You know, that's just my learning rate. So be gentle with yourself. It's a wonderful unfolding. And once the fog begins to clear, it is so rewarding to see clearly and to not be befogged by things that used to bring you to a halt, but to be able to still move forward and have the tools to, doesn't mean that we always stay in perfect balance, but to be sensitive enough to recognize when we're out of balance and to do a quick restorative so we bring back to our sense of inner peace. It's really an amazing, powerful transformation. So that's as far as we're going to read today. This chapter on the dream is higher level. My sense of it is, this is something that can be best appreciated after one has grounded in a lot of the earlier ideas. But there's always something at every time you hear it, there's always something there for you. And so if you feel your soul grasping at some of the ideas, but they're not quite crystal clear, well, I would say that's what learning is all about. That's what a happy learner gets adjusted to, is that we're grasping. We will, in an infinite universe, we will always be grasping for something that's just a little bit beyond our current understanding. And so to all you happy learners, I honor your willingness to pursue truth wherever it goes. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you all. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Great reading. Great.
Oh,
Thank you,
thanks.
Kathy.
Ditto
Good night,
that.
everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys. Have a
Good
great week.
night.
Peace and love.